bad do you feel for MCW? He just gets back and then that happens. He's a tough guy, what a couple of his teammates were saying, but how bad do you feel for him?
Yeah, no, and I mean, hopefully it'll be just a one-game thing, you know. Hopefully we'll be able to, he'll be able to, whatever, you know, by tomorrow or Friday, by shoot-around, he'll be ready to go.
Steve, at this juncture of the season, about a quarter of the way through, what are you optimistic about and what are you seeking improvement in?
Well, you know, the last 10 games, we've been 18th in offense, so that's obviously much improved from, say, the first 10 games. And, you know, then, you know, it's the defensive part, which I think right now we're like 11th maybe in the NBA. And if we're going to have a good year, you know, we're going to have to be a top 5 or 6 defensive team, which right now we're not.
What are the reasons that the team doesn't seem to be fulfilling its potential on that end of the floor?
Well, a lot of it's been the injuries, frankly. I mean, you know, we played those games without Aaron. We're playing without, you can see what a difference Mike makes just in one night. And then, you know, frankly, the other part is Vooch. You know, our defensive rebounding numbers without him aren't close to what they are with him. He's always been, you know, really an exceptional defensive rebounder. So I think a lot of it is health.
Steve, any info on Al Farouk, how he's feeling, when you guys expect him
Better.
back?
You know, he's here, and, you know, he said he feels a lot better. You know, they're putting together a plan now, and, you know, we'll see how he does going forward.
Steve, with all these injuries, what is your message basically to your team to kind of, quote, rally the troops, if you will?
Yeah, you know, my experiences are, again, I know people, everybody I've worked for, everybody, you come in, whoever the guys there can play that day, you coach those guys, and that's it. I've never said one thing about, I'll say MCW's not going to play tonight, you know, you're going to play, but that's it. You know, this is, and their schedule's similar, you know, this is 7 and 12 nights for us, so, you know, this isn't a league where there's a lot of motivational speeches, frankly. You know, you would have guys that care enough and are ready to win, or you don't. So, I mean, we more here's the game plan, this is what we got to do better. But I don't do a lot of that stuff.
Coach, what do you think of Phoenix?
Oh, they're playing well. I mean, they're hurt right now with injuries, too. You know, I thought Aaron Baines playing great. And the other guys are playing well too, but whenever you take out a guy that's as big a part of your team as him, then, you know, somewhere along the line, you know, you give something up. But, you know, listen, they're scoring off their defense. They're scoring at the rim. They have a ton of three-point shooting out there, and I would say Devin Booker is happy to play with Ricky Rubio, taking a lot of pressure off him, you know. It reminds me a little bit of watching Kemba play in Boston, you know, where he doesn't have to do all of it or so much of it offensively. So I think they have a good group, and you know, we'll have to play. We'll have a chance to win.
Coach, just a little off topic, but what do you think of the challenge rules? Catching a lot of flack here.
Yeah, no comment.
Is that bad?
Yeah, I'm not commenting on the challenge. No comment.
Coach,
No comment.
the other night, last night, you guys had a lot of balanced scoring. Gordon had 18, Isaac and Fultz each contributed 14, Ross had 19, Augustine with 24. When everyone's getting a piece of the ball and scoring, is it easier to catch W's? Because you guys shot 51%.
Yeah, and we moved the ball quicker, you know, like, you know, they switched a lot last night because they're, you know, Washington played last night with no centers. You know, all 3 of their centers were out. And so they switched a lot, which, you know, to me, against the teams that switch, you know, you look at the mismatches right away, but you got to move the ball. You know, that's the weakness of teams that switch. They don't help as well. And our guys did a good job with that. So you're right, more people touched the ball. It was also a very, very quick pace to the game. You know, the game was up and down, so there were more possessions also.
Good for you to be able to have Mo tonight, or do you know
Yep.
yet? Okay.
Coach, like Josh said, about a quarter into the season, are there any key differences that you've seen from this group of guys to last year's group of guys?
Well, I mean, the biggest part in this last stretch is, we're playing without our best player. So I think it's hard to, and he was starting, he had gone, I think, 25, 18, and 30 in his last 3 games before he got hurt. And whenever you lose, like for us, it's not just his offense. He's our best play. Well, with Markel, he's our second best playmaker, and we play through him constantly. So, it's a struggle for us at times that way. But I think what people are seeing is he doesn't get enough credit for his organizational ability and his defensive rebounding at the other end of the floor. He's turned out to be a very good defender, very smart, helps his teammates get organized, and we've missed that too. So I just think when, health is a big part of this league, but when you're evaluating your team, how can I say, you want to be critical, but you need to be right. And I do think it's very hard to truly evaluate everybody else when you're losing someone who, one, he's an all-star, but 2, he helps the other guys play by the very nature of how he plays. He helps them all play better. So I just think you have to be careful about judging until he comes back and kind of gets back into rhythm.
Steve, you mentioned when you were asked about Farouk that a plan is being put together. Has a determination been made whether he'll have surgery?
You know what? He just met with the doctor, so I don't think that's. I think that's what they're trying to decide. Good.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Be a good problem to have. I think fans can play a little more reckless.
They're doing well.
Coach, you talked about Orlando earlier, but just one thing I was curious about with David, how he has played here lately with the numbers.
Who was that?
Fournier, how
He's always been a versatile scorer. The way he shoots the ball, makes tough shots. Just watching the film, he makes shots at the end of the quarter. Contested threes off the dribble in pick and roll. Like teams, when you watch a bunch of games, teams seem to pay attention to him as a major focal point. Still putting up numbers, so he looks like a guy who likes to play. He plays international ball. He's just a really good offensive player. He's gotten better over the years. I remember working him out in New Orleans. 8, 9 years ago, if not. So he's just a good player.
You got to spend some time around Markel Fultz. How happy are you for his?
I don't like Markel at all. Troubles tonight. He's just, outside of competing, it's just good to see guys enjoy playing basketball again. Just watching him last night in front of his home crowd and family at the game, and seeing him play free, and he looks like he's having fun. So I got to spend a few months with him, and we're from the same area, so it's good to see younger guys from PG County doing well. He just looks comfortable out there on the floor. He's playing his game, not trying to shoot a lot of threes. He's really good mid-range, big and strong. That pass he made last night around 2 players to Fournier that's Markel. You can see the court, so I'm happy to see him doing well.
You mentioned how rookies that, there's so much expected of them early that trying to figure it out. I know Fultz obviously had the issue, but is he an example of someone that it took time to figure it out?
And it's still, he's still a developing player. I think when you see some success, you think guys have arrived, and that's just not the case. Sometimes it takes guys 4 or 5 years. I think we look at the money and where they're drafted, and we expect more, but I think organizations go into it with draft picks like that with a long-term approach. It's hard to hold on to that, but I think some of these guys and their expectations are so out of whack that it just messes with them. They don't get a chance to develop properly. Sometimes they're rushed in the process.
You mentioned this morning how defensively, obviously, you're different without Aaron in the middle,
Yeah.
but that maybe this group is starting to figure out some
Few things.
What are some of those things, and then maybe what's the next thing that still needs to be figured out?
We're adjusting to different defensive assignments and schemes better, whether it's switching, zones, blitzes. I think the guys are used to it now. Coming into a timeout, we may go to a different defense. And you have to, with all of the injuries from our bigs. You don't have that guy in the middle who just protects the paint, so you have to figure out ways to scheme. I got to make better decisions. That's what it boils down to.
Lonnie, I read the story today about the hard hustle team that you were a part of here in Orlando.
Still writing about that?
How much of an impact did that have on your coaching career?
My coaching career?
Or how much did it affect the way you wanted your teams to play? Or that team had an edge every night?
It's certainly a team that I thought about with this group. When we started thinking about the kind of team we were going to have, we knew we didn't have continuity, so we had to play hard every night. And that was what Doc stressed to us, I don't know, 20 years ago, I would imagine. Oh my gosh.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, so that I think so. It probably had a lot to do with how we approach this season with the new group. Sometimes if you play with extreme force, you can cover up mistakes. That's what we try to do. Our guys play hard every night. We compete to the last whistle, horn. And that, for sure, had an impact on me. That was one of the more fun years I've had playing basketball.
Among your players, Monty, where are you getting leadership from this year?
I mean, Ricky's been really good. Devin's growing in that role. Those two guys, usually if you look at our huddles, those are the guys that are leading in that capacity. And then there's things they do off the floor. Team dinners. Ricky's always at the team dinners. That's a form of leadership that doesn't get talked about. Devin does a really good job of spending time with guys who are younger and kind of go through or have going through what he's been through, I should say. There's just different ways to lead, and those two have been really good in that regard.
Can you explain how Kelly Oubre's addition changes the way you guys have been able to attack teams?
Kelly's a scorer, and he's competitive, a freak athlete who can also shoot the ball. And, he's not afraid to take big shots. Last game, he hits 2 shots to help us win the game. And I think when he's attacking and shooting, adding the defensive element, I thought his defense last game was the best it was all season. So he's just a guy that we rely on a lot for production on both ends.
You said before that if a guy works on it to do it, is Kelly an example of that had he not worked on it, that he doesn't hit those 2 shots?
I mean, you have to work on your game to be able to take shots like that in the moment, I just know that from experience. If you don't put the work in, it's just going to be foreign to you when that moment arises, because the moment brings more pressure. And our guys, we work on those shots. We work on those situations in practice. When you do have a chance to practice, we work on those situations. So that was different. We hadn't worked on that situation the other day, but those guys aren't afraid to take shots.
Monty, what kind of challenges is Jonathan Isaac going to present to you guys tonight?
I mean, he's one of the better defenders in the league, in my opinion. Just the length on the ball, at the rim, moving his feet. He had a play last night. He got called for a foul, but it looked like Beal was going to have a dunk, and Jonathan just rode his hip all the way to the basket. He fouled him, but it just spoke to his ability and will to not give up on plays. I think that's the DNA you have to be a great defender. So he's really good.
Thanks, Coach.